Right, you've got us now. She's got us.
We're going to get an echo if I leave it like that.
Can you hear me? It says here the town council chamber is on mute. That one there. Yeah. That's better.
Yeah.
Ah, good.
Good. You're off mute.
Found the right.
Well,
We found the right button to press.
we can.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good evening, Jane. Welcome to the meeting. Right, declaration for interest. Received declarations of any personal prejudicial interest under consideration on this agenda.
Just the fact that I may inadvertently get a chance to sit on a town Buckinghamshire Planning Committee meeting, so obviously I won't comment on your planning applications, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Starford.
One week you forget. Don't have one. Can you figure it like that?
Thank you. Item 3, minutes to agree the minutes of the planning committee meetings held on the 18th of December 2023 and the 8th of January 2024. They've all been circulated. Everyone agree?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Item 4, Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, Vale of Aylesbury Plan, Buckinghamshire Local Plan. To receive any updates?
I haven't got anything, I don't know, Steve, anything from that.
Yeah, all I would add then is that we had a very successful developers roadshow here in the community centre Saturday last week. Good attendance, and I did write personally to all developers attended to thank them for it, and I've heard back from them. And I know that our consultants are very pleased with how it all went. So we learned a lot from that day. Robin?
Just to say thank you to the councillors and staff who facilitated that event, popped in on 2 occasions, and it was seemed to be well attended, and it seemed like people were engaging with the process, which is really what we're doing. So both yourself and Anthony for being there all day, I think, and those of us who popped in and out, definitely need thanking for that. But those people who were there all day, we must thank them for all the work they've done in the offices.
We're well on the way now, because we're into the final stretch, hopefully, during 2024, where we're going to get the neighbourhood plan to the point where it can be submitted first to Buckinghamshire Council and then to the inspector. So thank you again, everyone who participated. Item 5, North Bucks Parishes Planning Consortium. Our representative is Councillor Anthony Rudd. Over to you, Anthony.
Thank you. The minutes are not yet published, but I've made a few notes from the draft that came out, and with your permission, I'll just quickly go through a few highlights. Interestingly, Lou Munger, who many of us know, was at the meeting, and we found that quite beneficial. He's got a great knowledge. Again, most of you know that Jeff Culverhouse, the secretary, died a while ago, and we've taken a bit of time to get a new secretary. There's a lady called Jill Morgan. So we're all up and running again, as we should be. Again, I've reported before that Pat Hardcastle, the chair, and I met Peter Strachan some time ago, looking to try and get a better relationship between parish and town councils, and he was going to get back to us. He hasn't thus far, and Pat Hardcastle is going to chase that up and see if we can actually shift it forward. We certainly talked about EDF renewables and solar farms generally, something that's on a lot of minds at the moment. At the last meeting, and Pat Hardcastle offered and still offers to do an interim meeting for interested parties. Now, whether we want to be involved in that or not, I don't know really. As is often the case, there's various sections. Mike Galloway, who is my opposite number at Newton Longville, gave an update about the Bucks Local Plan. And it was interesting that there was quite a bit, but I picked up the fact that we've talked quite a bit about tilted balancing and 5-year supplies of housing capability. And it has been clarified that the Buckinghamshire Council got a 4.7-year supply at the moment, not 4.5, so still not perfect. And this is the thing, I'm just going to read this carefully because I want to get this right. There is a note in the NPPF, which is the new government scheme. It says that if an application was submitted before the 19th of December last year, aspects of the change would not apply. In other words, status quo ante. But it is up to the decision maker on how the tilted balance should be applied, stinging tail. We moved on then to the A421 corridor study, and information's been chased up on behalf of the MBPPC by Pat Hardcastle via a letter. Then turn to a couple of our regular items, which is the Salt and Chase application and what have you. The design code is out now, and there have been stakeholder workshops. However, Newton Longville PC weren't invited, which, let's call it an oversight, shall we? Nevertheless, Newton Longville have managed to put a response in. Well done them. Updated design codes have been submitted. And there's a lady, case officer Sarah Armstrong, is that a name? Yeah. Right. And Newton Longville PC, to have a meeting on site with the developers. Newton Longville also noted the constraints have been mentioned in the design code, but they've not been addressed. They put their various points, but nothing's been said. And their attitude, or their feeling or summary was that Buckinghamshire Council just adopted their own design code, and all plans should conform to this in the future. So we moved on to Shenley Park, biggie there. That consultation is now closed, and Wadden PC and the residents were disappointed with the outcome as they don't feel they were listened to. There's a bit of a theme developing here, I think. Anyway, update on applications for solar farm and battery storage facility. Wadden are expecting an application in the next few weeks for a solar farm and battery storage at Wadden and the Nash Valley. Expecting presentation for developers. They're waiting to hear the results of the Manor Farm Beachhampton solar park application considered by Buckinghamshire Council in December. Being approved on a chairman's casting vote, so nip and tuck again. The NPPF seem to specifically want authorities to look closer at energy producing developments, and developments on landscape and agricultural land alone will not be successful. See where that goes. The meeting noted that Councillor Strachan's comments about us calling an application just because we can was brought up, mainly because I brought it up. And also you'll recall that I was asked to look at question 2 regarding planning. Now, I wasn't able to get it onto the agenda because it was very close. But what I did, I passed a copy, which I'd extracted from the main document, sent it to Pat Hardcastle, and he is distributing it to all the PCs in the organisation. And in some ways, that carries a bit more weight because it's a solo thing, and therefore they will pay a bit more attention when they get that, rather than just seeing it through a list of agendas. And we'll see what comes of that. Here endeth the lesson.
Any questions, Anthony? Robin?
An observation and a comment. Have to confess, I was involved in the solar panel application. I was involved in the meeting, it's public record. The reason the application was agreed is it was a sound legal application. And that was that. And it was a split vote because that's often the way. That's nothing unusual with an application. There was huge concern being expressed about that application, and the minutes are available if people want to see who voted and who proposed what. But it's normal if the vote takes place and there is a majority, then the chairman has to vote, and it was down to the chairman to actually agree with the officer's recommendations, which is not unusual for a chairman to agree with the officer's recommendation. There was nothing sinister in that. I won't comment on the other application because that is not even an application. I won't comment on it. But I will say that there is your comments around people not being consulted around large-scale planning applications is very concerning. I was in Milton Keynes the other day, and I was stood looking over where the various developments, looking from the actual other side, looking back, you know, looking through the hedge, and it was quite interesting. How do I put it? To note how close that development will actually come right up to the boundary of Milton Keynes, which I didn't actually realise quite how it was. And that's the what do they call that area there? Newton Leeds, and that actually goes right up to it. Now, one of the things I can't understand is there's a discussion around the access road into the Milton Keynes corridor. Well, there doesn't seem to be, although it's a Vale Plan agreed application, it mainly puts most of the infrastructure burden onto Milton Keynes in the sense that they'll not naturally go that way to receive services. So it doesn't seem to be very well thought out. Now, in talking to people as I walked around, I don't think there's been any great interaction with the parish, because there is a parish there, council there, part of it. There's no great sense, and there's no great collaboration in understanding, from what I can gather, how that will link in with the Milton Keynes, because it will then go into there and clock with one of the H's. I can't remember which H it was, and it can, but there's not enough room for dual in here.
Robin, that's 3 minutes. If you could just ask your question,
and I'll just make an observation. Well, the question is, will the organisation be able to indulge in a conversation across the boundary? Because I think there's a lot of knowledge on the other side of the boundary about both these applications, which we're not getting, which right to the Milton Keynes Council to get some information, because there's a lot of information that I fear we're not getting on the Buckingham side. And it's primarily going back to your comments around the 8421 consultation. It's all relevant to the functionability of that road, and it's all dependent on mixing it together. So would I be possible for the chairman to ask you the next meeting you have to ask whether there was any conversation, and perhaps invite people from the other side of the boundary, because to inform us what they know, to see if it's any more than what we think we know. That's what worries me, that it seems to be almost hidden.
Anthony, any response to that?
Well, I'm scribbling up a little good in here. I shall ask the question next time round and gauge the degree of awareness on how close the barriers are and.
And I think also just to partially answer Councillor Statutory, later on the agenda we have got the 0421 corridor response, so we'll discuss that then.
No.
Anyone else for Anthony? No, thank you very much for that.
That's all right.
Very full report. That's very good. If we can move on then to item 6, action list. You have the action list attached. The main things on there, cycleway on railway walk, which will come up on the agenda at 12.4. Buckinghamshire Local Plan, we're still awaiting the response. Various other matters, responses are awaited on. Street lighting, speed limit, Tingewick Road. We have to have a motion tonight. Councillor Draper is actually meeting with office to discuss options for a motion wording it, which will come to the next meeting, and that's about street lighting from St Lambol's Way down into the town, where there's currently dark spaces where it goes past the industrial estate. So that will be on the next agenda once that motion has been formulated. And that's all I've got to say on that. Robin, you wanted to raise something?
No, just to say that for you, Chairman, to be assured that which is given the full, there's a lot of correspondence going back a long time over that road, and you are that. I'm happy now. That's fine.
Catherine's been very good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Catherine is very good.
Catherine is very good. It's just that you need to know the whole background.
Thank you. So that will be in the hands of Councillor Draper. Thank you very much, Lucy. Anything else on the action list? Sorry, from anyone? No. Item 6.2, response from Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities on drainage. We asked a question about capacity for sewage and drainage in Buckingham and all the new estates. We have had a reply from somebody called Correspondence. It really speaks for itself. They're just giving us the official line at the moment, and I'm sure Councillor Statutory would like to have a say about that. Thank you.
Just for change, it's not even consistent with what we already knew, which we revised the legal obligations around these aspects, which the previous person dealing with planning, Steve Bambrick, gave in a meeting, which was that there's no obligations. You cannot make a developer do X, and the council can't make the water companies do Y, and Y being the water companies, they have no right to demand the X to do something. There's a whole legal. So I think what we really need to do, through you, Chairman, is to sit down and read what we know and respond to whoever correspondence is. Write to correspondence, the House of Commons, and ask correspondence whether they're aware of their own legal legislation, which seems to be the problem, which is there's no powers for the local authority to insist on a drainage scheme to be put in place. There's no powers for the water companies to insist to be consulted, though the water companies legally have to provide something at the end of the process. So there's no consistent line in any of this, and it appears that correspondence, whoever correspondence is, it must be going to be somebody else taking the job over soon. But if it is just a name added correspondence, we should really be seeing who wrote to us. It's the letters written on our behalf as the town council. So if they responded to correspondence,
they responded on behalf of the Secretary of the State.
Yeah.
they can put their name to it.
Yep. Councillor Harvey?
Two things. I think we should wait until the reply from Anglia Water about the capacities of sewage treatment before we reply to this letter. Because until we've got that sort of evidence in hand, then I think we should keep stum. Secondly, I'd like whatever reply goes back eventually In the third to last paragraph, it says addressing and upgrading wastewater treatment works is a priority for government. I'd like to ask them for a precise definition of what priority actually means. Because it seems to me that everything is a priority and nothing gets done.
Thank you. We do have a response from Anglian Water saying they are looking into it and they will get back to us when they.
But I think we wait until they get back to us with that information.
Thank you, John. Councillor Mahi.
Sorry.
Okay. Matt.
I'm wondering whether there is actually any use in us responding to this, because we can do this as a matter of principle. Whether that matter of principle is worth our and the officer's time is, in my mind, a question to be determined. But here's my that's my 2 pennies worth.
And annoying the Secretary of State, of course.
He gets annoyed by probably every other town council, and I would have thought it's like water off a duck's back. Yes.
Robin, you want to come back?
Yeah, I tend to disagree with that. I tend to thank Councillor Harvey for his contribution on the waiting for the information. I think that we do not let these things slip. We can carry on with them because there is a point of law which they haven't recognised in that letter, which we can authenticate that they're not given a factual supply. And it doesn't even explain the difficulties in the correspondence, which says that they took it very seriously indeed because they never looked at what the actual problem is. And unless we actually expose the problem that there is in law, in planning, to try and bring that up as a public record, how else are we going to improve it in developments going forward? And of course, then who knows, this may work its way forward and find a new Secretary of State at some point, or somebody else who takes it seriously. I do think we have to carry on, and I think what John said about waiting for a substantial spike in Anglian Water is good advice. At that point, we need to look at all the information. Yeah, and then respond accordingly.
We tend to wait for that.
Yeah, I don't think we let these things slip because history tells us if we don't say anything, and then if they say again we're not interested, well, that's quite political, isn't it? So
thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I agree that we need to keep on with this. The way that things get changed is by people like us chipping away at the government. And getting legislation forced through. If we don't bring it up and we don't keep on about it, then nothing will get done. So I'd agree that we do need to keep on with this issue and not let it go.
Thank you. So is everyone happy we do that then? Just wait until we've got all the responses in, and then we can bring that to a further meeting.
Just that it would be very useful for everyone in the meeting to know before we send that response to make sure they have the detail of the present law against the other thing, because it is important. It's a legal change in the legislation that needs to take place, and we are unfortunately not been given that right to do that. And if it doesn't happen, well, it will have to happen with a preceding government, but it does need changing.
Yeah, I think we've taken that point on board, so thank you. Right, no further thing on that. Let's move on to planning applications, item 7. First one on the agenda. Sorry, John.
No, I'm item 1 on item 2.
Okay, right. Item 1, 36 Chandos Road. You've seen the report from Catherine. Thank you very much for all that, Catherine. What you won't have seen, since Catherine's report, Highways have come out against this, recommending refusal of the application on the grounds that there is inappropriate parking provision for 11 residents, and there's a high potential for further on-street parking along Chandos Road. Increasing parking pressures along Chandos Road is a highway safety concern. It makes it more difficult for larger vehicles to safely manoeuvre. For that reason, Highways Development Management on this refused. So, John,
To me, this falls into the category of you've got to be kidding. Basically, no. It's just ridiculous overdevelopment, and the parking issue, of course, is to me. But no. Good grief, no.
Frank,
I think it comes back to our previous points about, yes, we need HMO type accommodation, but it needs to be in the right place, and properly organised, properly planned, properly developed, not just splitting up family homes, although it is also already a student house, I believe.
anyone else like to speak on the parking society? Roger?
I think the highways comments took the words out of my mouth, actually, because there's just not enough parking, and Chandler's Road, as we all know.
Yeah, you're surrounded by schools, you've got a supermarket next
Yeah,
door.
that's right.
Yeah.
So we think we consider that it's maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, just purely on the parking alone and the cars alone, I would say no, we can't
Yeah.
physically fit any more people on that road.
In that case, I will, on behalf of the committee, propose that we object to this on the grounds of insufficient parking on the site and taking into account the highway officer's objections. Seconded by Anthony, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All those in favour? That's unanimous with the exception of Robin, who, as we heard, is not keen. Thank you very much for that. Second item is number 40. Oh, I just should add on that as well that a notice hasn't gone up yet about the additional 5 rooms, so neighbours have not had a chance to have their say, so that can do the usual disclaimer that we haven't heard that.
Just a quick question, it might be silly. You know, we have sort of guides for how much accommodation we're meant to be providing, how much more accommodation we're meant to be providing. Is that purely new build, or if buildings, family homes are converted into HMOs, would that come under providing accommodation?
I'll get Catherine to answer that for me.
It always used to be that if you divided up a family home like this, that you had a -1 house and plus accommodation for 7 people, so you were always winning. But I'm not sure how Buckinghamshire do this, because we haven't had that sort of housing figure from them yet. So, I mean, I don't know, it seems to me that they haven't actually got a grip on HMO provision at all. They haven't noticed that it's not always students who cycle to lectures in this town. Very few of them cycle anywhere, frankly. I think only the ones who live in Bernardine's Way actually walk to lectures, and then only if they're at the Franciscan. They just have not. I mean, we really need to start thinking, you know, that yes, there are a lot of single people in this town who can't afford their own place, don't particularly want to sleep at mum's anymore, and that's where Himo's store. But Councillor Davis is right, they have to be in the right place, and they have to be the right sort of residents. And having got permission for 8 bedrooms to be, you know, created in an ordinary house, to add then another 5 rooms on the back is what Councillor Harvey said.
Yeah, because my concern is that if Bucks approve HMOs, will we then lose out on single people's accommodation in new housing estates? Are they going to say, oh, you've got all these HMOs, all the single occupancy people can
To be
live there?
perfectly honest, I think it's a left hand and right hand, Councillor Draper. I don't think they talk to each other and do it that way. Forward plans is not the same as plan.
It needs to be nuts.
Sorry, the housing targets, HMOs, so if you need 2,000 units, you don't take into account stuff like that. It's just new.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
That's a former planning officer's observation. That counts. Fran, did you want to say something?
No.
No, okay. Fine, thank you. So we have already done that one. Of course, the fact that we're objecting to 5 more rooms doesn't mean that the one that's been approved already can't go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's already been approved.
Yeah, that's been approved.
We waited for that suitable under the belt before they decided that they wanted to build on that.
Just so everyone's aware of that. Thank you. The second one is 43 Lime Avenue, householder application for proposed single-storey rear extension from porch extension. This is on the back of Badgers, just south of the Bletchley Road roundabout. The only point I'd make about it personally is that the rear extension will have a flat roof, and as you know, we're not very happy on flat roofs, but my colleagues are pointing out to me that it won't be seen by neighbours. It's the back. Anthony.
Thank you. Yeah, it just occurred to me that, yes, we're in a situation where we don't like flat roofs. However, one can see that there's reasons to put them up. And it did occur to me that perhaps if the any sort of glass on the top, as is in the case here, instead of just being flat with the roof, if it was a lantern, i.e. it stood up and across, it would, as somebody recently suggested, offer a bit more sort of shape and texture to the visual view. I'm not suggesting it's a planning issue, I'm not suggesting it's necessarily a recommendation, but it's just a thought to mitigate what is a relatively sort of ugly sort of box type structure.
Thank you. Roger, back into Sarpi.
No objection.
Thank you. So would members wish that we concluded this observation that skylight should be a lantern rather than a flat Velux type skylight? Anyone view?
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
Yeah.
I'd also encourage them to have solar panels and ground water recycling as part of the deal.
Yeah.
In that case, I propose that we have no objection to this, but taking account of what we've heard about the flat roof and the skylight could be enhanced by having it as a lantern skylight.
Yes, thank you.
Seconded.
I'll gladly second that.
All those in favour?
Otherwise,
We
no objection.
choose not to.
Yeah. Otherwise, no objection. Yeah. Thank you, and Robin abstaining in order. Third on the list is 7 Crone Close. Just come back again. It's also the application for single-storey side extension, 2-storey side rear extension. This is amendment to approval that's given in 2020. You'll recall this was built as a granny annex, but then neighbours noticed it had been given its own number, 7A, and had become a separate house, although attached to number 7. The things that jump out is there's no parking space for either of the houses at the present time. So any vehicles for both properties will have to be parked on the road, and there's no amenity space for the new house in accordance with the Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan. So, what do members feel?
Absolutely not.
Robert?
Yeah, that's a button site, so we think it should be described as a retention of a new dwelling, because technically it's another house. You don't give it a separate number. It's got a separate front door, and it's no longer an annex. And there's no access at the first floor level. There is an access at ground floor level, but not really locked. And if you're saying that it's number 7A, whatever the number is, then basically you've created a new dwelling. And so that should really be, the description of development should be changed to the balance of the new dwelling.
But then does the new dwelling fall because there's no parking spaces and
yeah, exactly. It is, the way it's been developed as a separate dwelling, it should be paying council tax.
Yeah.
So to call it a bit extension, which has got a separate front door, is a bit disingenuous, I think.
Jane, you're nodding vigorously. What would you like to add to this?
Well, I don't know what the polite word for it is, but they're cheating, aren't they, really? So I thought this was really, taking the proverbial out of us, and I disagree with it intensely.
Thank you. Anya?
Yeah, I've seen this on a number of occasions, and I can't work out whether it's a separate party living there or not. And I can look at, I mean, we could probably find out from the electoral register, but I can't pull it up quickly enough now. So it's a strange place. It shouldn't be. I mean, it is not in keeping with how these single bedroom houses in Linden Village look otherwise. Andy knows where it is as well. It's almost opposite you, isn't it? And as a retrospective application, quite frankly, they're having a bit of a laugh, aren't they? So I would object to this.
I mean, the fact that, it says on here, neighbours noted in June 23 that the extension was now labelled 7A. It had a separate straight staircase behind its front door, and the communicating doorway had been blocked up, but the original front door had not. All report to enforcement who wouldn't open the case file until it was provably a separate dwelling, which was done on the 15th of September when it appeared for rental on Rightmove. Subsequently, work was done to remake the communicating doorway as approved. I just feel like as soon as if it's granted, that communicating doorway will mysteriously disappear.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've just created another house.
So if I'm reading the mood of the meeting correctly, I will propose that we object to this on the grounds that it is presenting itself as a separate dwelling. And that would fail on the grounds of lack of parking, lack of amenity space, which is contrary to the Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan. And could I?
Obviously, members are starting, but it looks like they're going to object to it. You could add a caveat that say, were it to be approved, that the connecting door must remain.
Yeah. Okay. I can note that.
Just a thought, but I can consider.
Yeah, John, just talk about something.
I hear what Steve said, but that's unenforceable. You can't keep going to a house to see if the door is still there or is locked or bricked up or whatever else might happen to it. I think we should call this in. I mean, I think we should ask for this to be discussed by a committee. Because as a principle here, you can't just do this. And this feels a bit like other people try and, shimmy around the kind of planning laws to try and build basically what is another house that they're trying to rent out. No. No.
Fran?
It's blatantly not an annex, is it? I mean, it is blatantly another house. If they've put it on Rightmove to rent, it is blatantly another house.
Yeah. Right, well, I'll continue my proposal then that we object to this on the grounds that it is presenting itself as a separate house to number 7 and fails. That fails on lack of parking, lack of amenity space under Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan. You second that, Anthony? Thank you. So all those in favour? Thank you. Everyone except Robin.
And we call it in.
Sorry?
And we seek to call it in.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to. Yes, and we ask that we as a council call it in, or we ask.
That's a
Right.
Let's test this
In that case,
theory that we can call things in.
Andy?
So the council can call it in, and as we have been reminded, we can do this. There is no obligation by Buckinghamshire Council to follow that call in. And for it to be the only way by which they have to call, or where they have to call it in, is if all 3 ward councillors call it in. I'm perfectly happy to call it in. I do. Obviously, my fellow councillors will have to make their own decisions on this.
Thank you. We will request that of the masters. Thank you. Paul, you happy with all that? Thank you very much, everyone. Well done. Item 4, 106 Pillow Way householder application for single-storey rear extension. Again, you've read Catherine's report. This is up on Lace Hill. It's one of the larger houses up there, and it's quite a big extension, but it is only single story. Again, what Anthony was saying earlier about skylights, it would benefit the flat roof having a lantern skylight on that one as well, rather than just a flat Velux type skylight. Buckingham started, maybe you want to make Lucy.
Just purely, and again, this is just a question, does having a flat roof extension make it easier in terms of like building and structure to then later on down the line turn that into a second, a two-story extension?
Could we ask Roger to answer that?
Thought so.
Yeah, if you wanted to build a flat, because you've got this level of whole roof then.
I just wonder if maybe that's part of the motivation, because if you're just doing like an extension on your house, you're going to want it to look nice, but you might sacrifice it not looking as nice to save money in the future. But that was moving simple.
It's cheaper to build like that.
Okay.
To put a pitch roof on, even put it into it, would be quite a considerable expense on top of that, although it's quite big.
Mm.
And also it would preclude any future ideas of putting it on the story.
Wouldn't be that difficult to remove the skylight.
But I didn't say that.
Thank you. I was just going to say we can only make any sort of judgment on planning applications before us and not what they may or may not decide to do in the future.
Yeah.
It's purely
Yeah, speculative curiosity, yeah.
So,
naive curiosity.
Not naive at all.
if you want to talk amongst yourselves, please do. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yes,
Anthony.
just as a passing thought on this, that if you had plans to build a two-storey and start off on a single storey, which you then added to later on, of course you would have to build a stronger structure in the first instance to be able to support a second storey, and that includes footings as well as the walls. So it's difficult. You can't prove it, but it would be extra costs at a point when it wasn't needed. So you know,
it's not an issue tonight anyway.
No, that's right. No, it's not a planning issue.
Just a quick disclaimer, I wasn't implying that any of the planning applications tonight are going to that. It was just, I had a thought and I was curious.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. In that case, then I propose that we have no objections to this, but with the suggestion that they use a lantern skylight.
Okay, I'll second.
Seconded by Anthony.
Yeah.
All those in favour? That's again everyone but Robin. Thank you. That takes us to number 5, 55 Wells Street, listed building application for insertion of partitions and cell events. This is one where they're doing a very good job on this lovely old property. And I understand there's a possibility they will at some point to reinstate the windows that were blocked up in.
That was in one of the
Yeah. So that was back in the 18th century when window tax was imposed. And then like those up again. This is quite straightforward. They want to just carry on doing this work. And this is all being done with the support of the heritage officer. Lucy.
I was just going to say, having grown up, knowing the couple that lived there and spending a lot of time there and seeing how much work has needed to be done on it and how much work has sympathetically been done on it, I'm fully in support of what they're doing. I think they've been very brave taking that project on because it's a massive undertaking and they seem to be taking their time with it and doing it properly and sensitively. So yeah, I support that.
Thank you for that. Sure.
Yeah, I've got no objections to that. I'm just interested, it's got a basement.
It's massive.
And how often does the basement get filled with rainwater, really?
Every year.
And last month being the latest. It's also got a well in it, which doesn't help.
I just love playing as well.
Could be right in Wells Street.
Could be.
Thank you. In that case, I propose that we have no objection subject to the heritage officer's approval. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? Thank you. And the final one tonight has that. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. The 24 sorry, 6 on the list, Alder House, Verney Close. This is converting the existing Undercroft and the new built flats in Verney Close to number 1 bedroom ground floor residential unit. This is right opposite Buckingham Town Council's office. So Catherine looks out at this every day. The only proviso from highways is there's to be no on-site parking, and they would require signs and bollards to prevent that from happening. There is a cycle rack, which is going to be moved from, but no, it's not there at the moment, we said, I think, even though it was in the planning that there should be a cycle rack together with the bins in the Undercroft. The cycle rack has not yet been put in, and on the plan, Catherine has said it suggests that there's a safety reason it should be moved 90 degrees, so there's not a steep drop when you're putting a bicycle in. We might regret the loss of trees and flower bed. The flower bed is going to go, and there's only space at the moment for 5 of the 8 required bins. Anyone got any comments on this? Roger?
Yes, we have no objection to it on the proviso that the bins are actually properly stored away from public view. They've got plans for a bin store there. But one of the problems with this site is that there's a lot of bins out on the parking area, which are various businesses, and all the White House has got 1 or 2. So, so if you can get a bin store agreed for this as part of a condition, if they approve this, then that would help to alleviate the rather unsightly view it has at the present time.
Yes, Catherine made clear in the report, some of the bins are not from the flats out and Browns in White House, and also from Coffee One.
It might be worth, as an aside, it might be worth, I don't know if it's worth the town council exploring with the refuse people in Buckinghamshire Council, whether or not there could be some agreement between the various landowners or businesses to actually provide a store rather than just having them left there in the car park, because they can be subject to vandalism. So it may be worthwhile trying to achieve that at some stage in the future, if we get the bin store for this.
I think that was you said in your report, the ones from Browns and Coffee One are actually private collection rather than in council collection.
Yeah, but I think we can still put them behind something as opposed to just leaving them out on the.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Road.
So does anyone have any comments on this? Well, I propose to have no objection to development with the proviso that they follow highways demands, and that the cycle rack should be reorientated 90 degrees on grounds of safety. That we know that there's only space for 5 of the 8 bins in the proposed bin store. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? Thank you. And that's a yes, is it? Thank you. So everyone except Robin. And Roger will take your comments on board about how we can do this in the future. Thank you. That's done with the planning applications. You'll all have seen the pre-application feedback from Tingewick, and we're not in our parish. The plan is to build 75 new homes at the west end of the village, next door to Westwell Farm, at the top of Budden Road. And what concerns us is the flood alleviation. They are providing quite a big flood alleviation plan. Where it would affect us is that the Tingewick Brook, into which this would drain, then goes down to the golf course and enters our river, the Great Ouse, down on the golf course. And there's a potential for flooding there. Robin, do you want to say something at this point?
Yeah, just as I'm going to comment on the application, only the fact that.
Can we just say it's not an application?
No, it's not
consultation.
Consultation. I'm going to comment on it, and the only thing I'm going to comment on is there's no detail which we would presumably want to see about what type and such flood alleviation is being put in. It is in all our interest that we understand that, and you would have thought if and when this ever comes forward for a planning application, like when the town council considered that application, which was an application like the Tingewick Road, a full flood alleviation plan explaining what it will do should be in there, and I don't think it's unreasonable to, as the chairman said, to seek some advice on what their intentions are, because I couldn't ascertain anything by looking at that map, and I won't comment on the application per se, just the elements around the flooding which you referred to.
John?
I'm a bit confused because I thought within the current Aylesbury Vale local plan, you can't just build it on the edge of the village, because this proposal here is got fields on effectively on 3 sides of the border. So I don't see how that was ever going to be allowable unless it's now open season and you can build wherever you want to build effectively. If you can find an edge to a village, you can build.
I'm not sure. Is there a Tingewick plan as such? Or
Well, I mean, what's something building on the land just to the east of Badgers, for example?
yeah,
Just
well, John, it's a pre-application consultation. It's
yes. Well, I don't say. Well, let's see.
Roger may have some advice on this.
I was going to say was when you with the town council comments, it might be worth asking them for a hydrology survey, because I suspect that this may be similar to the St. Springs. There's loads of springs in the ground that nobody bothered to survey, and hence there's a lot of flooding now that goes down to the back of the house and Bath Lane. So I think that before they consider putting in a flood alleviation works, they should do a proper hydrology survey to identify the water in something at the present time, so that you've got some evidence of what's there to hopefully present the houses that are in front of it down the hill, if it does occur, being flooded. The other thing I would say is to just run to the north of the village, up the road that goes to Water Stratford. There was a recent refusal by the Gladmans to develop up there, which is on the northern edge of the village. So that might be worth looking at that refusal decision, just to get a few pointers.
Thank you. Well, having heard what you and Councillor Stutchbury has local knowledge have said, I would propose that we do reply to this consultation, and that our comments would point out our concern over the effect it would have on Buckingham through any potential flooding, and that we take on board what you said, Roger, about any surveys, and we ask to be kept involved the whole way through. But before we put that, Anthony, you seconding that? Or?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Robin.
Historical background from grandfather, when they built the aerodrome, all the entire aerodrome and all the drainage system on the aerodrome drained to the Shellswell. Consequently, there was never any water of great weight that went down to the system through the village, Tingewick village. So there has been a huge change in the operation of the watercourse up there to do with the bypass. As the bypass went through, it changed quite a lot of that, in the sense that those drainage systems laid down by good men and foe during the Second World War no longer in function. So it all changed with the bypass, and there's 2 areas which you can see as you drive up there. There's a balancing pond both ends. But I don't think we need any extra water coming through the town centre. And who knows, maybe they can demonstrate through that they're going to improve the situation, but we do need to know that it does, as far as our community won't thank us if they get another purge of water through there, through the actual purpose of what they're doing.
Oh, thank you for the background, Robin. Helpful. Well, been proposed, we have a seconder, so all those in favour, we do make comment along those lines. Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you very much for that. Are you happy that Catherine and I will put together our comments? Thank you. Excellent. Let's move on then to item 9, planning decisions. You'll notice of all the approved applications, the only one we opposed, and after recalling, was the Heimer 4 London Road. Calling was refused on the 2nd of January, and it was given planning permission. We had concerns over the White Hart Hotel internal alterations, but the outdoor works, including the TV screens, were removed from the application due to objections from the Heritage Officer, and that was our main application. So that was good on the environmental health and Heritage Officers. Refused. We opposed the 2 illuminated shop signs at number 6 High Street, so that's and both of those were refused. That has not been consistent with the conservation area. They're citing amongst listed buildings. Again, that's noting conservation area regulations. Moving on to 9.2, appeal was lodged against the refusal of Stoneleigh House, 17 Castle Street, or to go from boutique hotel back to private residence. The appeal was withdrawn on 9th of January. Another appeal has been submitted. We haven't yet had details of that, so we'll bring that back to you for any comment when Catherine receives that. Appeal has also been lodged against refusal of the replacement of the boundary wall at 31 Highland Road. This is a fast track household appeal, so there's no opportunity to submit additional comments on that. Not for discussion tonight, but just to inform everyone that we have also had another appeal refused, which is Stratford Road, which is the yeah, this is the land south of Stratford Road, the little triangle at the top of the hill. They were appealing against refusal.
No, non-determination.
Non-determination, I'm sorry, yeah, non-determination. Interesting to point out that the planning inspector also noted the 4.7-year land supply that Buckinghamshire now has, which Anthony mentioned earlier, courtesy of Mike Galloway. And the reasons given for refusal was that the proposal would conflict with a number of ballot policies, but also with 5 policies of the Buckingham Neighbourhood Development Plan. And he found the proposals conflicted with the Development Plan, Neighbourhood Plan, and no other material considerations have been shown. Therefore, the appeal should be dismissed. So that's 3 in a row, I think. He pointed out. So our neighbourhood plan is still carrying weight. Even at this stage. Robin?
I think it's well worth, for you, Chairman, if the committee agree, that these sort of decisions based upon the neighbouring plan and what it can actually do is well worth a press release. That these were disagreed because we have a neighbourhood plan. So that when people are going out consulting why you're having a neighbourhood plan, it explains quite adequately some of the good things that you get through having a neighbourhood plan. I don't propose that a carefully drafted factual press release is done about through actions of the Town Council Planning Committee and colleagues in the Buckingham Society raising these issues, that has drawn these conclusions, and that means that the neighbourhood plan is still in weight, has got planning weight. And that is all the reasons why we need to be pushing on to have an enhanced and more modern neighbourhood plan. And then on the basis, I hope you'll see this as a good reason to be involved in the consultation, if that's agreed.
Could I suggest, Robin, that we refer that to the working group to do that, the neighbourhood plan working group, because that's very much our remit to draw attention to that with the work we're doing at the moment.
Well, with respect, they're not a committee,
you know,
And the committee's here to make a decision. Now, we can either not make that decision, and we can put an amendment to refer it there, but I wasn't thinking that was it. I think it's to do with a decision taken within this committee, and therefore it's there if they want to, because it's to their benefit. It's not a decision for them to take. They are not the council.
Would you think you make that a proposal then?
No, I propose what I
Thank you,
think.
John.
Well, I second Rhonda's proposal, because I think it does us a favour in terms of promoting the revised neighbourhood plan coming autumn, fingers crossed. Now we can show that the existing neighbourhood plan is still carrying some weight, and therefore the referendum is something that is important, that is worthy of your attention and ultimately worthy of your vote as well. So I think it builds up the momentum to let people know that we are an existing plan, we're a revised plan, we're a particular plan, and there'll be a new vote come the autumn. I think this is in our interest to promote this.
Lucy.
So it can come from both parties. It can come from through the work of the working group and the planning committee. The neighbourhood plan has been able to do this, and this doesn't have to be one or the other. We are a team.
Yep, thank you. Anthony?
I think it's worth noting that, and I'm sure John would agree because I've seen his name on it, in social media, people are really talking about the various scenarios, not always very nicely, but nevertheless, it is of public interest, and anything we can use to counter or amplify the importance of it is good news. And as Councillor Draper says, if we fire several different guns, all to the good.
Can I just say, I may have lost the thread of this in here, and I apologise, but it is on an agenda item, in which case we can't make a decision on it today.
That's a very good point, yes, I should have picked up on that. I did say it wasn't for discussion tonight, didn't I? I was just reporting that, because this will be presented to the next
Next
planning
Can you
committee.
not mention it as an agenda item? I thought you did.
No, I did say this isn't on the agenda,
You did.
so
But in which case,
can we move that to the next planning committee?
we'll move it to the next planning meeting. It'll carry just as much weight in a month.
Yeah.
In which
So
case,
like
you-
3 weeks anyway.
3 weeks. That something can be brought forward and officers can help you draft that for the meeting. It won't matter for that amount of time, will it?
No.
Fran, did you want to add something? No, okay, the member's happy to do that. then.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
We can come back with something, as we say, Chairman and Councillor Butch could actually draft in time for the next meeting. Thank you. Right, Buckinghamshire Council Mattes to receive news of Buckinghamshire Council, new documents and other information from Buckinghamshire Council members present. We start with earlier. And have you got anything to report?
Nothing that has not in one form or the other. No, actually, there's one thing that I will mention, because it relates to a neighbouring parish where we have an interest in. There is a, I forget what it's called. It's a, let me double check this. Relates to the planning application for the land of behind Manor Park and Maids Morton. And there is a meeting tomorrow morning about a members' workshop on strategic sites in Aylesbury, and I will attend that.
Right.
Because it's so close to us that that site is presumably of interest to this committee.
Good. Thank you, Anya. Robin?
Yeah, just to say that I was more than interested and slightly complex and confused that the proposals for the health centres gone into the public domain, because I'd attended several meetings where it had been described as confidential, and so which case I think there needs to be some clarity around those issues which we're trying to establish about what is the health centre is been a very long demand for the community, and we need to get clarity around what the actualities are. Secondly, as I've referred to previously on several occasions, there is a report coming out which will be this month. That report may need to go to either this committee or the Environment Committee, because the planning side is a bit to do with growth and infrastructure, which you mentioned in it, I think very much are questions for the Planning Committee, and the areas in it to do with health provision per se are probably something that needs to be discussed in the Environment Committee, because that report will then go onto the House, and if it's agreed in both select committees, will then form policy of Cabinet take it on. And I think the amount of hours which have gone into working with all the health partners, it's not very often that two select committees join together to work on a report. That hasn't happened before, because this business which the town council raised on numerous occasions about why we failed to get development contributions to fund developments in our area has been taken up on a wider scale across Buckinghamshire, and it's not only a Buckingham-centric question. So I hope that will come out. I'm trying to get some correspondence on what the settled position is on the development going to committee for the 300 houses. I'm still failing to get a response, which means I'm going to have to move up a ratchet with that now. I'm also advised that the application which was against the neighbourhood plan, being the one, the 420, is currently working on the material considerations to do that plan, which raises a whole vast of questions which suggests that at some point to your committee there'll be the section, the detailed plan, which is to do with the roads and the connecting junctions, highways and whatever. What I remain absolutely concerned about is in all parts of that, there is no notable sewage and drainage plan. I still remain, as I spoke with your good self at the committee meeting, when they determined the application of 420 at Osley Way to be fit and proper, that there has not been any great consideration to the accessibility of that, and the way the phasing on that application is being proposed, which is the phasing of it brings forward that area to the right of the application, which Mr. Children will be coming down here. None of the mitigations suggested in that application, which this great thing, are they going to be crossing at the Gorcut Road? Well, they won't be built out to the Gorcut Road, so they can't take that crossing if they chose to. The Tingewick, the coming down the industrial estate, the fact that there'll be children moving into that estate, coming through the industrial estate. So it's very important that we work together to try and make sure that they listen, because that road's quite a fast road to cross, and all the children will cross there to go to one school or the other. So I hope that's interesting enough. So I'm sure that the clerk and the council will hear in due course where that comes. So we need to stay watch and brief, because the last thing we really want, because it looks like it's going to come forward in phases, is, let's be realistic, the developments aren't going to happen so quick in the next period as they did in the previous period, and it might come forward very slow. So we could have an isolated community there with no notable ability, wandering around an industrial estate road trying to get to school. And I think that rather like when the town council asked and we achieved to get the roundabout built on the Tingewick Road before they constructed the Tingewick Road development to make sure it was safe, I think that's something that we need to take very deep interest in, because the last thing we need to be discussing is a child who doesn't get to school and crosses that road unsafely. And I'm really concerned without a drainage sewage plan, where they're going to put it. The industrial estate drainage was not designed to take water for there, in which case I think at some point we need to find out, for the committee's point of view, I think we do need to at some point, which is a town council issue, is get the drainage and sewage plan for that whole area to make sure that we are informed, because we know now that it's not working at capacity. You discussed earlier the limits of the legislation, and with these two things happening.
I think, as you just said, though, Robin, this is a matter for the council, not this committee.
Yeah, I know, but at some point, I'm just making the information. The false teeth prompts you. No, but I mean, we can bring it forward, whatever, you can ignore it. You can ignore it. This is a report, it's nothing matter for the council, but they're things that I will be looking at and are following up.
Thank you.
And I remain concerned. What the town council does about it is entirely up to the town council. But I'm not speaking as the town council at the moment. I'm speaking as the Buckinghamshire council. So what I'm saying here may be something I'm already doing, but I do think this is something that needs to be considered wider than my own worries.
Thank you, Robin. Robin, you question to be really, you will be aware that they have started work on the first phase of Osier Way, even though the conditions for drainage and suds haven't yet been met. We have reported it with photographs, and Catherine, you got an enforcement number almost immediately, didn't you?
I was only aware of it through you, Chairman, so thank you.
They weren't, the conditions said they couldn't start any of the work until those conditions had been satisfied, and they've already sprayed the whole of the site and put a cutting in for the entrance road opposite to NACA. Yeah, so that is an event at the moment.
We are, just lastly on that we are hoping, I was advised that they may start doing the work this month or to end this month. We might actually get that unlevel road repaired, which the town council's through Catherine has only been asking for a decade. So it's got, Catherine's probably wrote more letters on to repaired than a good many. We've all talked about it, but Catherine's wrote all the letters and it's been tremendous. So we might actually get it repaired, and it might save you subframes a bit when you go along there. If it
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I mean, I just checking the details here. I am very concerned, given what Robin's mentioned here. I'll shut up, it's okay. So I'm very concerned about school children leaving the new estate and heading in the direction of the two schools not using the Pelican crossing by the Esso carriage, but maybe trying to cross earlier before the crossing near the roundabout. There's a hazard there, a real hazard, and I think Robin's right to raise that.
Thank you.
Better before than after.
Questions for Robin or for Andrew? No, thank you very much for the reports, both of you. Whilst we're on the council matters, item 10.1, A421 study, there has been a letter from Steve Broadbent, who's the Cabinet Member for Transport, updating us on the A421 corridor workshop. You will recall that the first meeting was held on the 12th of September, and a lot of feedback was given to the Buckinghamshire Council and to Atkins, the contractors, and they said they'd come back within 2 months, and it was scheduled to be held again on November the 9th. That was cancelled because the director of planning had moved jobs, and progress so far has included a workshop with local members and parish town councillors where we received that feedback. The team's taken on board all the comments and incorporated into the work as appropriate. Our consultants have now been carrying out further testing on some of the options to better understand their long-term effects on traffic flow. This is going to take a couple of months to complete. Therefore, we're now unlikely to hold the next workshop until later this spring. And they'll be back in touch with us. I mean, unfortunately, this is just going on and on and on, but we are where we are with it. And Robin?
I have been chipping along with this question, Chairman, and I have had several responses from various officers. and I are utter dismay that we were informed, well, you were informed as town council that you were going to be part of a consultation which hasn't yet taken place. I, as a Buckinghamshire council, I expect, and here has been written to, as a newly elected Buckinghamshire council mentioning that they're going to do a further study. Now, what I've got no understanding of, which is really worrying me, is there seems to be no liquidity or direction about the concerns being raised. Now, we can wait to the end of it, and what my real concern is that there was going to be another consultation, and if we're having that now becomes a consultation about the information gathered in the previous consultation, I'm worried that it won't be good information, and I'm really worried because if they choose to ignore the work that you did, because I went to that meeting you went to, I also went to a previous meeting of myself as a Buckinghamshire councillor and made many of the points that I knew you were going to make about the dualling of the A21. It's totally infeasible, impractical, illogical, and unachievable to think that they can dual the A421 through Buckingham. Because the A421 in Buckingham, which I wrote to them recently about the A421, the roundabout, the Tesco's roundabout was constructed and there was a safety order on it, only considering the traffic coming from the A421 to that and the Aylesbury Junction. It was not constructed to take traffic of a huge volume coming the other way. And the whole thing that when we did that, and those who were present remember that we all argued and fought to get soundproofing put in for both Badgers Estate and Meadway, and because we had to argue to get the soundproofing put in to mitigate the road being moved close to them. There's a simple piece of legislation called the 1972 Highway Act, which states that if highways can't prejudice named property. Well, you look at that road where it is, I really don't see where and how they can dual that. And when you come out of Buckingham, you've got to consider a golf course, a garden centre and a cemetery. So,
Robin, that's 3 minutes.
It was 3 minutes. It's marvellously enjoyable. But I think it was important enough to say, and if we're going to keep 3 minutes means that we'll never be able to say what we needed to say. It would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? But what I'm saying is we do need to sort of somehow acquiesce around saying how we're going to deal with it. Because if that comes back and says that's going to go through there, and they've ignored the town, and they haven't used the good offices of our officers to talk about the Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, I will be crying foul in a very loud and personal way.
I will just point out that the letter does say the further workshop be arranged to discuss the findings and shortlist intervention options. John?
My reading of the situation is they're doing enough consultations so they get the answer they want to get.
Yes.
Yeah. But we can't move any further on this. This is just really to note this letter and just that. Thank you around on that. Right, just to move on then to 9, unless anyone else has got a comment on that. No, on 9, sorry, number 10, to consultation on proposed alteration to parking hours and charges. You've all had a document about off-street car parking. Big changes in Buckingham. They're going to extend the days you can park by 3.5 hours, from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. They're going to charge all day Sundays and bank holidays. This is the proposals. Where previously those have all been free. Western Avenue, which has always been free, is going to be brought in under the same conditions. 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, but interestingly only open to class 9 vehicles, which excludes electric vehicles. Yet they put 2 electric vehicle chargers on the Western site, so that doesn't quite add up. And then finally, which affects Buckingham, although it's not in Buckingham, Winslow Rail Station. They've outlined what the parking charges would be for that. That again is class 9 vehicles, which excludes electric vehicles. Run Monday to Sunday, so 7 days a week, and over 9 hours, it'd be £8. Now that contrasts very, very strongly with Aylesbury Vale Parkway train station, where the whole day is £3. They're talking about £9 for Winslow. We had a discussion about this during our briefing this afternoon, and the general feeling there is that the changes are of such an enormity that there should be a public consultation. I think Councillor Sutcliffe also has pointed out that the indications given that there would not be an increase in parking charges, and if there was, there would have to be a consultation. I think I've got that right, was it? Could you just confirm that?
Is this not a consultation?
Well, one at the cabinet meeting where they proposed the budget, which I raised a question on budget scrutiny of the council, there was a collection of charges put up, which were the changes and charges, which the council scrutiny committee were looked at, and which the cabinet have agreed. None of these changes were in them list of charges that went to the cabinet budget. I'll have to read they've just published the cabinet tonight, so we won't know unless we read them papers tonight whether these additional changes are now going to form part of the precept. But in response to my question, the cabinet member alluded to the fact that if there was no intention, or he wasn't saying there was going to be any changes. I asked whether there should be a consultation, and he didn't allude to that. And I think Annie was there and all. Were you there at that part of the meeting? Or was it the day before you arrived? It probably the day before you arrived.
Could have been, yeah.
Because you attended the other 2 meetings, didn't you? So I think that there's some real concerns around this, because the nature of that consultation isn't very fluid, and the timeline around it is pretty small.
Well, we've got an extension until the end of this month. Town clerk was able to obtain that for us instead of.
I would suggest that members go back and look to see what was actually said. But my memory of it is that we were told there wouldn't be any changes, and now there is. It was not in the paperwork, but went to the Budget Scrutiny Committee that there was going to be changes. The changes of the cost was in there, not the changes of the times. And this is a large change and a large incremental change. It should have formed part of the budget consultation and the cabinet proceeding meeting and the precept. This isn't basically business, it's in to produce it halfway through. Unless they're going, this is a consultation for the next year's precept, not this year's precept. I think that there has been a call by councillors to have a call to arms over the parking per se. So I think we should formulate our views once we have a look at the cabinet response meetings agenda tomorrow and see if it's in there. If it's not in there, it really can't form part of the precept of the council, and the council can't, and this is a substantive change that we should then at that point get together and call it out, because if it isn't part of the budget, it isn't part of the precept, it hasn't been charged. What are they doing?
So my understanding is that the council is obviously trying to maximise income from all sorts of charges. So this is where this is coming from. I can't comment any further on the legal or formal procedures that Robin's already talked about. It just seems to me that this goes counter to what East West Rail is trying to achieve, which would seem to be to move traffic from road to rail. And if you're charging people best part of £9 to park their car there, they might decide that it's after all probably better to drive to Oxford rather than, I mean, nobody's going to take that train to go to Milton Keynes anyway, but it could be interesting to go to Oxford, but not if you're paying £9 to park your car.
Yeah.
And I think that would be not a formal, but a sort of substantial reason to say that it's not a good idea.
Thank you. Jane, you've got your hand up.
Yep, thank you. I think what Anya said is quite right. This is about income generation. And I think car park charging, when it was originally introduced, is more about rationing. So we could all get a place in Cornwall's Meadow. But this also mirrors the, do you remember the charitable licensing consultation? I think that was a public consultation. So I remember getting everyone revved up to answer it, where the council was trying to introduce something which was harmonising, as they would see, what happens in the south of the county with what they want to have happening in the north of the county. The hours just don't fit. Those hours, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, that's to do with an urban community where you have commuters. Whereas here, by 5 o'clock, 5:30, people have work is finished. We're off now. We want people to come into town to go to dinner. We want, it's going to strangle the economy of the town. So I think it's absolutely dreadful. And I don't know what we can do. I hear what Robin says, and I'm sure he knows how to which levers to pull. But if we can get a public consultation, I think we can get thousands of people writing in about this one. It's it'll do harm to Buckingham. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, just before I get other people, I did actually have a quick scout around this afternoon. We're not so concerned with the south of Buckinghamshire, but we are about all our neighbouring towns. Stony Stratford, free parking.
Yeah.
Brackley, first 2 hours free. Bicester, first 2 hours free. Winslow at the moment is free, but the Greyhound Lane car park is also included in this as a potential charge. But the fact is, this is going to damage the economy of Buckingham. And that is the real point, I think. Fran, you were next.
I agree entirely with Jane. The local economy will be badly affected the early evening. How much is it going to cost Buckinghamshire Council to actually pay the parking attendants to come and make sure that everybody's paid for a ticket after 5 o'clock?
And on a Sunday.
And on a Sunday and a bank holiday, etc. Parking at Winslow train station, I've just had a look here, daily before 10 a.m. at Bletchley is £6.40. So why would people drive to Winslow to park the car if they can go from Bletchley or whatever? I see that Berkhamsted and Apsley are £9.10. Saturday, Sunday and bank holidays, it's £4.60. So, yeah, absolutely ridiculous, money grabbing, and it's a very, very short-sighted policy, I believe, in order to try to balance the books now, because the central government funding has been cut and cut and cut for the last 14 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. You see then, Anthony.
I'd say I agree, it's purely money making, but also they haven't even written Swampoole's location properly.
No, it's
in
Aylesbury.
And that's on a public, that's a public domain, that's like all the consultation documents. If they can't even get that right, why are we putting our faith in them to get anything else right? Are they going to get the signage right? Are the machines going to be working all the time? Because the machines that are there at the moment don't work all the time. It's just it's.
You mentioned the Swamppool, the government wants people to get fit, so what do? You charge them more?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and this is the other thing, the Swamppool isn't even a car park that is likely to get that badly abused in terms of people trying to park there for free, because it is quite a walk from the town centre. The worst thing you're going to get is university students parking there or sixth form students parking there.
Anthony.
A couple of points, if I may. It was very interesting that you checked with the Aylesbury parking. Is that the current, or is that what's proposed? Because of course all these, what we're looking at here in this document is for forthcoming adjustments. So it could be that Aylesbury are going to go up a bit. All I'm saying is before we use that as a stick to beat anybody with, then it's worth knowing what is proposed for Aylesbury in the coming in the coming months? Do you
Well,
see-
no mention of either Aylesbury Station or Aylesbury Vale Parkway stations in the.
In any of these?
They're
Okay.
run by APCOA parking.
Okay, the other thing was that we talked about class 9 parking.
Yep,
Yeah, that doesn't preclude electric cars.
that's class 7, I think you said, Catherine.
Class 9.
Because everything.
Class 9 is everything, that's
Class 9 is
everything.
everything except commercial vehicles.
Right.
So class 7 is specific.
Have we got that wrong?
That's right, thank you. I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
just check that.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
It's quite specific about Western Avenue. Currently, it's class 7 and 9. And then the new proposals show only class 9.
So that's still okay.
Right, so class 9 is all classes of vehicle except commercial vehicle and trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think class 7 would be specifically.
Right, so it includes electric, okay,
Yeah.
that's,
I just, not being pernickety, but I thought it was an important
thank you. John?
point.
Well, there's a lot to talk about this. One is, of course, that when they brought in revised charges here in Cornwall's Meadow, the way counterbalancing that was to have free parking on Stratford Road and Western Avenue. That's now being taken away, so in a sense undercuts the argument for doing away with the free hour or two we used to have in this car park. But I think all of that said, this is clearly regressive taxation. This council is running out of money because the government has taken the money away that they used to get from Westminster. There are some stupid glitches in here, like for example, class 3, which is people with blue badges on the Swanborough Leisure Centre in Aylesbury, is no longer in the proposal. So what happens to people with blue badges for the Swanborough site? So there's a whole raft of stupid little things here. And the 7 to 7 thing is just madness. And frankly, what's happening to Stratford Road, the Stratford Fields, removed from order? What's going to be the parking there? I mean, that says absolutely nothing.
Well, it will continue as it is, they've removed it completely.
Continue as is.
But does that mean that they'll no longer be
But it's
maintaining it?
not part of this order. What we're looking at here is the off-street parking order 2021 with the amendment.
Oh, I see. So you carry on as is. then.
Yeah,
Okay. The other point, two other points I've made. One is we haven't seen proposals for the on-street parking yet. Because my worry is that with this idea that James has mentioned of, equity across the county, that there will be proposals to bring in on-street parking charges. Because let's be clear, this is about bringing in money, regressive taxation, like they say. If they can do that for the on-street parking, they also will. And second is to reaffirm Robin's point. If the current budget is predicated upon the income that they're virtually get from these increased charges, then this is not a consultation. This is simply saying, this is what it's going to be, because it's not, it's going to be a genuine consultation. All their figures for the budget that's been set, the preset for next year, are up in the air. So what exactly is it? And I look forward to hearing what the cabinet actually says.
thank you. Robin, then,
Firstly, lastly, I'm going to make a proposal. What I can't tell you is if it's in the cabinet papers for tomorrow. If it is, what you said follows thus that it is in consultation, it's an implementation. So, but then the whole point, when I questioned this last period, when it went up to 60 pence, if you go back, and I keep a very copious record of what people say to me in response. The member for Princess Risborough said, I think when we do it next time, we need to have a look closely at what we do in Buckingham. It's a public record, I've got it on film. Always good to keep these things, isn't it? So I think that there is a whole raft around this, and James and Wright and Fran in what they said about this, because it's not suitable to a market town like Buckingham. It's going to disrupt the economy, and it's going to wreck the night economy. But the night economy is what keeps many things going. And they're absolutely right. So I'd like to propose that we we've got an interim council, which this consultation is going to go on to that we make a recommendation to interim council that when all the facts which we're going to get for that meeting, that we then do a strong objection to the consultation on a fact-based objection around the points which has been raised here, the inconsistency of it, the point that was raised about the fact that the consultation couldn't even get the Swan Pool in the right town, which Lucy made, and all the points which were made here, because we need to make that recommendation that council seek to object to this on commercial grounds and the viability of a fragile rural market town economy. And I'd like to propose that we do that now as a short, we'll propose to council that they object, but then between now and then, we ascertain the facts that we've given in. Yeah.
Can we have a second for that? Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, Councillor Draper, thank you.
And then we add the facts thereafter, Chairman. That'll be a recommendation.
Steve, will this, anything we decide tonight, will that go to interim for ratification?
Well, it will go to full council on the 26th.
So there's still time.
The agenda asks that this committee agrees a draft response to the consultation. So I was thinking that fits.
Good. And as you heard, the town clerk's got an extension
Yeah.
until the 28th of February. So
we can do.
we have time.
We've got time to do it then. And
This
we've got
can be
time to do.
discussed again.
We can do due diligence on this before then.
Yeah, well, you'll have your whatever happens tonight.
Yeah, but
November.
just lastly, Chairman, the costs of charges are a public record, and it was not in them cost of charges, because I attended the meeting and asked them about the rise in the cost of beer and got a response thus. So this isn't in there. So if it's now going to, in a subsequent meeting, an amendment at the meeting tomorrow, well, the agenda which has just been published, as John rightly says, it isn't consultation.
Yeah, John.
Well, it says in the document, no decision has been made at this point.
Yeah.
Now, either it's a lie, or it's or it's true, in which case the budget is no more. So it cannot coexist. Those two factors cannot exist in the same universe. One of them is wrong.
The budget isn't a lie because it's put in that it will go up by 10 pence. That was in the budget. It will go up to 70 pence for the first hour. And those, they cannot in law, they can in law put changes of cost in, which means that they can raise it by 5 pence, 10 pence, whatever they want. It's when they change the boundary of the tariff, it then has to have a proper consultation. My thought is it isn't really that much of a consultation given the time frame of it, and something so serious as to Buckingham's economy would need careful consideration and all stakeholders being involved. As Jane and Fran said, this is going to wreck the fabric of the local economy, and that's why I want it to go to full council so we have time to gather all the information.
Thank you, Tanya.
So I think we're needing to separate, and I think we have been doing that, but just to summarise, the rise of 10p for the charges, which probably in itself wouldn't wreck the economy, in my opinion.
We're expecting that.
But to extend it to 7 o'clock in the evening, in particular, the 7 to 8 in the morning, is probably also not going to wreck the economy. But the charge between 5 and 7, that is precisely when people come to eat, when people are coming for a night out, and extending it to Sundays. Those are our real issues of concern. Is that have I got that right?
Absolutely.
I think also, you mentioned about the early morning one. A lot of people who live in houses around here will put their cars in the car park overnight and get them out
also true, yeah.
Before 8:30.
Yeah. True.
Thank you. Fran, I think you were next.
I was going to say there's a lot of chuntering quite often about the 60p for 3 hours at the moment. So putting it up to 70p for 3 hours is I know it's only 10p, but people do say that they don't come in to use the shops in town because to pay 70p for 3 hours, they don't feel it's value for money, because they might be only wanting to pop to the shops for 20 minutes, half an hour, pick up a prescription or do whatever. So that means that people will get their prescriptions delivered to Tesco rather than having them having to come into town and then possibly going for coffee or whatever else. The fact that the minimum you can pay for is 3 hours is psychologically a difficult thing for people to get over.
Like the other point, Sunday's bank holiday.
Yeah,
Flat
absolutely.
£1.70 charge.
Yeah,
You drive into town to get paper from Waitrose and you have to pay £1.70 on top of the paper.
Yeah.
Officially, I mean, you won't, people won't, I know, but.
No, quite.
Lucy, you've been waiting patiently.
Once. Also, the other thing about the Sunday bank holiday charge, how many people come to town for a night out on a Saturday night thinking, I can leave my car in Waitrose car park overnight? Will this then potentially not only damage the nighttime economy, but also are we going to see a rise in drink driving?
Yeah.
Or potentially people being like, oh, I'll just drive home. There are so many knock-on effects from something which I'm sure
it's not going to make that much difference.
it's not going to make that much difference to Martin Tech's pockets, and it could make a serious detriment to our town.
Yeah, I think that's the picture we're getting generally. Roger.
I was in the car park last week and none of the machines were working because I could hear people chatting.
Yeah, all broke.
But if you phone the number, it says, are you in Cornwall's Meadow, Aylesbury? It's the same as they think that. So I thought, well, I'm not in Aylesbury, I'm in Buckingham.
Yeah.
So I mean, I never paid anyway, so I just think it was silly. But it's just like there's one enforcement bloke who comes around the room a couple of times a week. So it's just unenforceable, in my opinion. It's just a stupid idea. And also, sorry, I just remembered Bristol North, which I use quite regularly, £5 to park all day. And this is even more than Bristol North. So it's just, like Andy was saying, if you want people to use the trains, it's just going to put everybody off. Oh.
Thank you. Robin, would you like to wrap up?
I hope we're going to vote on the proposal, but the fact is that I've discussed car parking charges since 1999 in Buckingham. And I've never ever felt that we've ever achieved what I call, apart from the times we used to pay for it and keep it free. And one of the things that was driving that discussion from the town councils through that whole period was the consideration of the economics of people taking jobs in the shops in Buckingham. If you want a job with minimum wage in shop in Buckingham, the two car parks which were free meant that you could actually park somewhere and you could actually work in the town and take up a job because you haven't got to pay parking. You've got to pay parking charges. That means the first so many hours that you work will be per hour working to pay your parking charges, and that's going to be a knock on, because I don't suppose the shopkeepers are going to say, okay, we'll put your salary up by X amount to cover your parking charges, and that will in itself indirectly have an effect on this council, because we will have to change our it's a small change, but I think we'll have to meet at 7:05, not 7, so that we can arrive into Buckingham and not have to pay for an hour's parking, so that we can come to the meetings and park free. Otherwise, all those councillors will be down there ticketed one night for not actually paying our parking. Guys, apart from Mark, of course, you can park in the blue bays, and we'll be fine. But the rest of us, we might get a ticket.
Well, let's point out the Buckingham Athletics road will still be free. That's where a lot of the shop.
Yeah, that's restricted hours though. So
Yeah, you can't do it all.
No, on Saturday.
It's not. Can I just say?
Well, can we take this to the vote?
Yeah.
Because sorry.
Just quickly, knock-on effect on parking in residential streets as well.
I was just going to say, in view of what the agenda's asking, which is a draft response, and I take on board what we said, that we need more information. Would members be minded to perhaps delegate the office to draft a an initial response for recommendation from council
Yeah.
in conjunction
Yeah.
with consultation to you, so that we don't have an elongated repeat discussion.
Yeah.
Members always welcome
Happy
then
with
to
that?
add any amendments.
I think if that's going to go to the council, so that we don't repeat this question, that's why I said with the additional due diligence, that's the words I used, I think, which is something one should do more often, I suppose. But then that when we get to council, it'll be a simple fact-based decision. We'll have the issues that we know answered, whether it's a budgetary change or not. We'll have the issues about the impacts which have been discussed. I can't imagine that the town councillors will want to rediscuss every issue and just be minded to agree the recommendation,
Yeah,
which have been proposed and
I think what
seconded.
Steve's saying, if you could keep the office informed on what happens.
Well, actually, Steve can read that tomorrow morning. I haven't read it. I will read it. It's got a lovely question for me on there. I've just seen that. But apart from that,
Thank you.
you know, it's in the budgetary questions and it'll be in the draft of the charges. I'm very happy between now and then to work with you, Steve, to come in and,
So Steve, you happy with that?
you know, information.
Yeah, if members are happy that it's some of
Yeah, I'm also immensely keen before we vote that we include all the comments made by all the members
Well,
here.
That's what we're doing, Robin, of course, that's the whole point. Thank you, we'll draft. We can draft that. Right, should we put this to vote then? We've heard what the proposal is, that basically we're proposing these charges, want the full consultation on it, in view of the fact it's going to damage it, it's likely to do to the local economy and everything else that we've discussed tonight. All those in favour? And that is unanimous.
Yeah.
Thank you, including Robin.
Including me, Mr. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Steve, for the advice.
Okay.
Updates from representatives on outside bodies. Anyone? Yeah, no. Buckinghamshire Council Committee Meetings, 17th of January, there were no Buckingham applications, 14th of February, we don't know yet. Strategic Sites Committee, the 18th of January meeting was cancelled, there's one on the 15th of February. The next Growth Infrastructure and Housing Select Committee will be on the 15th of February. That's 12.3. 12.4, Transport, Environment and Climate Change Select Committee. Catherine sat in remotely on that meeting, and you have a double report, Catherine.
Yes, the first bit, they've got some people from Network Rail and East West Rail. And you were there.
I was there, yeah.
And there were also questions whether the bridges will accommodate electrification eventually. And they said, well, the existing ones won't, the new ones do. But the existing ones are just being refurbished and the parapets raised. Raising the parapet. However, and then Bill Chappell asked whether the footbridges have steps or ramps. And the answer is, they will all be steps. So those footpaths where people have carefully made a nice public footpath that's usable by wheelchairs and things, if you come to the railway, you won't be able to cross it. There are no proper figures yet on frequency of services, either passenger or freight, because they haven't actually officially appointed the operator, and so they can't do that until then. And Councillor Martin pointed out that the audit report says that East West Rail must do more to engage with the public. And they agreed that, yeah, perhaps they could. Of course, they don't talk to anybody at the moment, so anything you thinking that more than that is good.
Before you leave the rail, any indication of when it's likely to be operative?
The figure we were given for the current is, I think, early 2025, reading between the lines. They weren't giving an exact figure or an exact date, but they were saying, Catherine, correct me if I've got this wrong, that, you know, in the course of 2024, they were expecting to have, you know, all the additional installation that you need, apart from the track, you know, that the civic engineering was basically completed. the track was laid, and so they're now doing things like signalling, etc. So my understanding was, I think late 24 is a bit of an exaggeration. I don't believe that will happen, but 2025.
They might have the information on frequency of service and that sort of thing by the end of 2024, but there won't be actually anything running until next year.
Robin?
I happened to be adjacent to the station the other day, having my compulsory walking, which I seem to be doing at the moment, and I walked down there with someone who works the Network Rail and looked at it from the fence, and the comment was made that the station platform isn't exactly very long, which means that the trains they're anticipating using that platform is not a very long platform.
I would assume the 2-coach diesel buses.
Well, this is what I'm not anticipating huge use of the train station after all this investment. Platform perhaps should have been made longer. But I am really concerned at two factors: that the comments made by Councillor Gemmell, which is points which have been discussed endlessly by people, is why on earth we've had all this investment and not actually electrified it in the first place. And what you've said, it seems that you spent money which is only going to have to be spent again by somebody else at a later stage. If you couldn't put it in, you could at least made it so it was possible to do it at a later stage cheaply. And lastly, it is not acceptable in any shape or form that we live in a society today that when you build a building, you do not cater for disability. I've pushed a wheelchair around for a long time in my life, and anyone should have to push a wheelchair, because if you try and get someone in a wheelchair onto a train, it is not acceptable. It's completely unacceptable, and they clearly have not less constructed that station in conjunction with the Disability Act, and which clearly states that you cannot construct something or build something that has to take lead for people with disabilities. So the whole station's been constructed, and if it was in 1969 when the Disability Act didn't raise, and I think that's really a miss. If no one knew what the legislation was and what the new rights were when they did it, and if they're not going to put substantial mitigations in to make it possible, Network Rail and the people who constructed it and the government should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves.
Thank you. Tanya?
My understanding is that that doesn't apply to the station access, but to the footbridges that connect hiking trails, footpaths across. So there was a lot of concern that existing footpaths across the line had been interrupted. Now put the footbridges in. The argument that was given at the meeting was that this weren't paths that were in urban area or by the stations, but they were hiking paths that people used for hiking and were uneven paths. And therefore, that is why the wheelchair access wasn't needed. I didn't get the understanding that there would be no wheelchair access to the stations.
Well, that's the
They
religion.
specifically said the public footpath.
Yeah. So it is the public footpaths, and I think they're the rights of way where you can't continue, and they're
In the stations, you could always arrange a lift.
yeah. So I don't think it applies to the station.
Well,
Could we let Catherine finish your report? There's quite a lot to go yet on climate change.
Yes, they have made significant progress on air quality, apparently, which is good, and 73% into their carbon zero planning. And then Councillor Gemmell said, so we could achieve 100% by 2030 and not 2040, but that's not the way it works. You do the easy bits first, essentially. And the national infrastructure is not going to support quick change away from fossil fuels because there isn't enough electricity supply. Councillor Guy asked why there's so much of the fleet is still petrol and diesel powered, and they said, well, big things like bin lorries and gritters aren't available as electric vehicles yet.
Yeah.
So, you know, well, that's what is
I thought an electric one for Aylesbury the other day. It was very proudly, we are electric.
Yes, I've seen that.
But they also through this, which I haven't heard before. They provide dropped curbs free of charge to residents. Why not pavement gullies for curbside charging? And I thought, I haven't actually heard that one before. If they're anything like the rainwater gullies in Wells Street, then they will clog up with these and then you'll never get anything anyway.
That's quite normal in London.
But they did point out that you can't even see the parking space.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you get home and there's somebody parked in front of your house, you're not going to be able to charge your car overnight because you can't connect it to the gully cable. Anyway, they are going to have cable, they've got a trial in Wendover and the cable gullies go live next week.
Right.
And then they're going to introduce some lamppost chargings, which will be trickle charges, which is basically what, if they're going to do it here, we're going to have lamppost charges really, because gullies are going to wreck our pavements and they're bad enough already. And we don't have very many lampposts that are actually at the front edge of the pavements. They're all at the back edge. So anyway, smaller vehicles of the fleet will be electric, so that's good. They did ask the pool workers, like the social service people who use the electric cars, could have free charging at the gateway, and they have said no, which caused a little ripple through the meeting. Then they went on to the question of log burning polluting the atmosphere, but they seem quite blasé about that. Their pollution figures are going down, and 4 out of the 5 air quality management areas are below the accepted level. There's only one of them that's got to get it down a bit further. So
Where are those areas?
they didn't specify.
I thought that would be.
I expect if you belong to the committee, you have discussed this ad infinitum, so you know them. But I have not watched this committee before, so. Really why I was tuning in was active travel, which was due to start at midday, but they finished it. They started it 10 minutes early, so I was glad I was watching the earlier part of the meeting, or I'd have missed the beginning. It worried me that the report had said that the delightfully named Tingewick, which is, hang on a minute, a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So the Buckingham one was changed to a light version, and I thought, what does that mean? I mean, I have to watch this thing. And it's because we've got quite a detailed cycle infrastructure that links around the place, so we don't need the full works like some places do who haven't really got it. And still, it means that they can still bid for government funding, so I'm not so worried about that anymore. I thought they were trying to get away with the north of the county not having the same facilities as everywhere else, but it appears that we've got ahead of the game, so that's all right. Then there was a big debate about e-scooters and e-bikes. Not all the committee seem to have taken on board that e-scooters are only legal if they are the trial ones that the county is running and not private ones. But they said that, I think 3 times they emphasised that the scooters are only the rental ones. E-bikes, they were a bit worried about them sharing certain pavements with pedestrians because they are sort of like a motorbike. Anyway, apparently they're going to see if they can find space for separate lanes for e-bikes.
Up Morton Road.
No. I mean, Buckingham,
Where possible.
Buckingham is not alone in having narrow streets. I mean, some of the towns down south have got even narrower ones. They're quite interested in making the towpaths wider, because towpaths are ideal because they're level. I don't cycle for miles on the towpath. But yes, but people don't like e-bikes because you can go uphill in them. And older people like them, apparently. Younger people like scooters. But when they're doing their funding bits, they're including things like benches for pedestrians to sit on and look at the view. But they haven't actually considered that perhaps as e-bikes have a, that you can go for a long way on a bike, that they might need to actually put bike racks and chargers at railway stations, somewhere else where you might use your e-bike to get to. You can do 50 kilometres apparently.
To Buckingham, keep it.
Well, I mean, ex-councillor Loftus has got an e-bike. I used to rag him terribly about being a cheating cyclist. But I mean, a lot of people do have e-bikes now, and they're not as chunky as they used to be. And but yes, if you could park it at the station and charge it while you were away, that would be lovely. And Bill Chappell said that every e-bike is one less car on the road, so that's good. And their insurance costs less as well, which I couldn't tell you.
Thank you, Catherine. Could we ask that be appended to the minutes when produced? That's really good report. Thank you so much.
Well, it's not a report, it's notes.
Well, notes, yeah, but that's very, very useful to everyone. I just have two observations to make. We can ask for all the cycle lanes we want, but as I said this afternoon, I went to Aylesbury on Friday, I went to Winslow on Sunday. On both occasions, there were either single or groups of cyclists on the 0413 on the road, holding up traffic, not using the cycleway. I didn't see a single bike on the cycleway. Well, I probably saw 30 or 40 different groups of bikes. So you can, you can take a walk to water, but you can't make it drink. But people do not seem to want to use them. Lucy?
The feedback I've had from a lot of cyclists is that they don't like using it because people walk on it and then that slows them down without seeing the irony of them then slowing traffic down by cycling on the road.
I've had feedback from cyclists that the reason they don't use the Winslow cycle path is it's covered in broken glass most of the time and they end up bursting the tyres.
John?
I've walked that path a couple of times. I've never seen any broken glass on it. I think that's a bit of an urban myth, to be honest.
That other people say that thorn from the farmers cutting the hedgerows, but it's a Robin.
I have to make a confession, I rode one of these scooters the other day and I was photographed, so if you see that, I apologise. I don't know whether I had a helmet on or not, so I apologise again. But they are quite big and they're not like you think a scooter, and my only concern with these things, I was riding it around a car park at Aylesbury. They move quite quick, and if you're a person on the pavement and you get hit with one, you'll know about it, and in place it'll hit you, be your ankle, or your lower shin. So the mixture of these vehicles and pavements, and people with pushchairs and buggies, and whatever, it rather just err on the side of that we could have a lot more A&E visits with people with broken ankles, and if they are out, never recover from it. So I think that's a consideration, and only just on the point you made about the growth of infrastructure and the committees. All these select committees are open to anyone who's a member of town council, and I suggest that if you have something that is of interest or vexes you, you send your own written question in, which once you hit the time buttons on it, and attend and ask questions, because from a point of view governance, that's what it's there for.
Thank you, Robin. Catherine, thank you very much for the notes. Really helpful. So if everyone's agreement, we'll just append those to the minutes of the meeting. Thank you. We'll see them at leisure. A couple more items as we carry on. One thing I will add, we have not had BMK ALC planning forum since April the 20th last year. We got notice this morning there will be another one on February the 27th. But despite the fact it was agreed at the April one, the future ones will be face to face. This is being called as an online forum. Invitations have been sent out to 192 people. So if they all replied yes, I don't quite know how it's going to work. I have written to Mel Wolf from about today to point out that we were assured that future forums will be held face to face. I haven't yet heard back from them, but so that's my concern. But that forum I will be attending as a representative and as the member, and I'm sure Anthony or someone from the Buckingham Society will be attending. You normally do that?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, so it's more for parish members, isn't it?
The circulation list was mostly clerks.
Yeah, to clerks, yeah, okay, thank you. Strike that one then. Enforcement issues, number 13, any new breaches? John first, then Robin.
I've been in correspondence with Catherine about this. There's a large advertising board on Shire Council land outside Villiers. Outside Villiers.
Villiers, sorry.
Which is immensely distracting the car trying to negotiate the roundabout. It's also the case that other people have had adverts of a much smaller nature removed by the council because it was on council land and was against planning permission. And I don't see how this can be allowed to, especially if it's not on their plan. So I think we should report that as a breach, especially within the conservation area. It should not be allowed.
Thank you.
I mean, but I think Lee had a look driving in one day. Louise has had a look both from behind the wheel and walking, and so have I. It's actually parallel with the curb between two of the new planters.
Yes.
So it's not blocking views from West Street or Bridge Street, but it is slap bang in the face of anybody coming down Market Square to the mini roundabout.
Yeah.
And if they decide that they want to stop and read it, and it's not actually for the Old Town Hall, it's actually for Villiers' new state bar.
Oh, right.
So it's not even in an appropriate place. The traffic already goes back in jail on a regular basis. So, you know, people are going to stop and read that and think, oh, yes, that'd be nice for Sunday, then go on.
They can afford it.
Thank you.
I'd,
No, Robin was next.
No, I was going to raise the same point John did, but correct me, do we not have the power to take these away?
Yes.
In which case,
If they are causing an obstruction, so if they're actually on the pavement and people.
well, I would quite like to walk across the roundabout myself, because I'm an individual, and I've always been an individual, and I quite like to walk that way across the roundabout, and I think it's obstructing me.
It's not obstructing pedestrian traffic across the front of the town hall because it's between two planters and right in the middle where people wouldn't be crossing unless they are.
Are we having a sort of, John makes a good point, we're having a double standard here, are we? It's on the pavement.
No, I'm talking about the wording of our devolved services permission to do that. And we can only do it if it is causing an obstruction. I mean, the ones by Brown Steps we have allowed simply because it stops people tripping over the steps. But the one that Afrocombo put out early on, they put it in the middle of the pavement. You couldn't have got a mobility scooter or a pram past it. So, you know, we have to, we just have a polite word usually rather than going the whole hog and sending a letter, unless they're recalcitrant.
Well, I was hoping we could keep it and then give in exchange for 2 benches which are missing.
Or a couple of stakes.
Or no, 2 benches which have been taken to the front of the town hall.
Put in store, waiting for somebody to claim them. He doesn't want to put them back because people sit on them.
I would argue that that massive sign is obstructing the view of a very historic building in the conservation area.
That means we have to report it to them. We can't do it under devolved services because that is a very restrictive permission.
So thank you, John, for raising that. Anything else? I did mention Osier Way that we've already got an enforcement number for that, so we'll wait to see what happens there.
I am awaiting a response from enforcement on all the cases that I haven't been told are closed. She said she actually been off ill, so she's catching up, so.
Thank you. So item 14, rolling list updates, tree felling applications, no change from last time. Land grab reports, no change from last time. Corner requests, Catherine's updated and revised those. And HMO licenses updated from January 24. Unless anybody's got any comments, we just note those.
Yeah, can we record in the minutes? Oh, thanks for Kathy for doing all that.
Absolutely. Everyone agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 15, Mattes report, members to report any damage, superfluous, redundant signage in the town, access issues, or any other urgent matters. I would just remind you, the town clerk has asked all of us to bear in mind that it's better to do this through Fix My Street in the first place, rather than worry her or Catherine with these. And they are becoming more and more effective, Fix My Street. Now, I notice they do come back quite quickly. But I would make the point, I have actually, end of last week, reported more collapsing drains on the bypass and also in Stratford Road, but I seem to be one amongst many doing that. Lucy?
Just, I don't know if it's, the map at the entrance to Cornwall Meadow by the jewellers, it doesn't actually have the disabled toilets or the public toilets on it in Cornwall Meadow car park. They don't feature on that map.
I'm just referring to Catherine.
Map,
Big wall map.
is that the, when you say the entrance, I mean, there are several.
Sorry, so the entrance by Harrison's, by the jewellers opposite the old
Yes.
jail,
That is a diagram of the shops, and it's put up by the owners of the property.
Oh,
It's
is
not
it?
a map of the car park.
Oh,
And there's another one over in the other entrance by the kitchen shop, which is different now because they've changed supplier as a management company.
Yeah, there's two different managing companies for each of the,
Well, there's three altogether, but
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Robin?
Just to make a point, it is always good to use Fix My Streets, and members have the right to use Fix My Streets if they want to. It is not for us to be instructed to use Fix My Streets as an instruction of an alternative. The agenda item states matters arising, and it is an agenda item which has been agreed to be on the agenda. But I think it's appropriate for us to be instructed to use Fix My Streets, unless if that's a report that needs to be come forward, it has to be a report to us instructing us as members to use Fix My Streets. Yes, we all can. But when a member arrives to a meeting, they may have noticed something on the way down, and they may need advice on how to fill it up. I don't think it's appropriate to be instructed to use Fix My Streets. We are councillors, we're not to, and we're not in that position to be instructed to, unless there's a reason and a cost reason, and a report with it on why we've got to start using Fix My Streets. I don't think it's appropriate to be given any instructions. I understand it would be always better to do it first, but it's not an instruction. It shouldn't be an instruction. That isn't right.
I think the town clerk was quite clear, wasn't she, that it's to do with potholes and damage to roads, nothing to do with signage, nothing to do with other things like that, access issues, which are not the province of Fix My Street. This item still stands.
Yeah, but
She's saying rather than load these on the staff, things like potholes and damage.
in which case, that's a question to go to the Resources Committee. If there's an issue with the resources,
Can we
it
ask
needs to go
Steve
to-
answer that, Robin?
I think the intention behind the memo from the clerk was sent with in the best regard in terms of the delay that could be caused by not reporting something immediately. If someone happens to notice something, whether it's a member or a member of the public or member of staff, if they see something and take a picture, report it immediately and pin it on Fix My Street where they're stood, it will expedite things. There's no reason why it can't be mentioned that you've done. So when you come to a meeting, it's good to hear the members have seen something and reported it. I don't believe that the clerk intended in any way to give us instruction. I'm sure it should be say if that was the impression she gave, because I don't believe she meant to.
I didn't take it as an instruction.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, I don't think the whole question should be brought up. It's just a comment.
Yeah.
Wasting time.
Matters to report, members to report, damage to superfluous or redundant signage in the town, access issues or any other urgent matter. It says nothing about potholes, and that's things that we as a committee deal with. We don't deal with potholes. We don't deal with the most of the things that Fix My Street deals with. So I think that the instruction or the request from Claire for us to use Fix My Street was for those items and not instead of reporting matters as is on the agenda.
Thank you. Everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, no other matters to report then? In that case, Chair's items for information number 16, nothing to add to what's been said tonight. Date of the next meeting, February the 26th, following the interim meeting of the full council. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
James, all with us.